Admiral Jake Morrison stood at the wide window of his ship's command deck. Stars filled the dark space before him, but he was not looking at their beauty. His mind was 15 years in the past, remembering the day everything changed for humanity. The ship around him was called the UES Retribution. It was the largest and strongest vessel humans had ever built. The metal walls hummed with power, and hundreds of crew members worked at their stations. But Jake could still remember when humans had no ships at all, when they were running and hiding like scared animals. Commander Lisa Hayes walked up to him holding a data pad. Her face was serious, as it always was when she brought important news. Lisa had been with him since the early days, when they barely had enough ships to escape the alien hunters. Now she served as his intelligence officer, watching the galaxy for threats and opportunities. "Admiral, we have new reports from our listening posts," Lisa said. Her voice was calm, but Jake could hear the tension beneath it. After 15 years of war, they all knew how to hide their feelings. Jake turned from the window. "What are they saying this time?" "The Vorthak Empire has sent 3 separate messages to Earth Command. They want to talk. The Zephyrian Collective sent 2 more. Even the smaller councils are asking for meetings." Lisa handed him the datapad. "They all want the same thing." Jake looked at the messages on the screen. The words were polite, even respectful. These were the same alien races that had tried to kill every human in the galaxy. Now they wanted to discuss peace terms. The irony made his jaw clench. "Peace," Jake said, the word tasting bitter in his mouth. "They want peace now." 15 years ago, the aliens had a different word for peace. They called it the Great Purge. Jake closed his eyes and let the memories come, as painful as they always were. He had been Captain Morrison then, commanding a small patrol ship near the colony world of New Terra. It was a beautiful planet, with green forests and blue oceans that reminded everyone of Earth. 2 million humans lived there, farming and building and raising families. The attack came without warning. Jake's ship had been checking shipping routes when his communications officer received the emergency signal. New Terra was under attack, not by pirates or rebels, but by the full combined fleet of the Galactic Consortium. Jake had rushed his ship toward the planet, but he was too far away. All he could do was watch on his screens as alien warships surrounded New Terra. The planet's small defense force tried to fight back, but they were like children throwing rocks at giants. The aliens did not try to capture the planet. They did not demand surrender. They simply began firing their weapons at the surface. Massive energy beams carved through cities and towns. Orbital bombardments turned forests into burning wastelands. In 6 hours, 2 million humans were dead. Jake had watched it all happen. His communications officer picked up civilian radio signals from the planet's surface. Families calling for help, children crying for their parents, teachers trying to keep their students calm as the world ended around them. Captain Ryan Brooks had been stationed on New Terra with his wife and 2 young daughters. Jake remembered the last message Ryan sent before the communications went dead. "Tell Earth that we tried to surrender. Tell them the aliens would not listen. Tell them to remember us." The aliens had given no warning. They offered no chance to evacuate. They simply decided that humans were too dangerous to exist and began erasing them from the galaxy. New Terra was not the only world to die that day. The aliens hit 12 human colonies at the same time. Each attack was planned perfectly, timed to prevent any escape or rescue. In less than 24 hours, 15 million humans were dead. Jake opened his eyes and looked at Lisa. She had lost family, too. Her brother and his children had been living on Harmony Station when the aliens destroyed it. Everyone in the fleet had similar stories. Everyone remembered. "What does Earth Command want us to do?" Jake asked. "President Martinez says we will receive the alien delegations," Lisa replied. "But on our terms. They come to us. They come unarmed. They come alone." Jake nodded. It was the right decision. Humanity had learned many lessons in 15 years of war. The most important lesson was that showing weakness only invited more attacks. The aliens respected strength and nothing else. "Any word from our reconnaissance teams?" Jake asked. "Captain Danny Rodriguez reports that alien military production is down 60% across all major systems. Their fleets are scattered, trying to protect too many worlds at once. Admiral Peterson's task force destroyed another supply depot yesterday." Jake smiled for the first time that day. Humanity had become very good at war, not because they wanted to be, but because they had no choice. The aliens had tried to teach humans about death. Instead, they had learned that humans were excellent students. What about the liberation efforts? Colonel Patricia Kim freed another prison camp on Zerion Prime, 3,000 beings from 17 different species. Most had been scheduled for execution next week. Lisa's voice grew warmer when she talked about the rescue missions. They all felt better when they were saving lives instead of taking them. "Good. Make sure those survivors get proper care and transport to safe worlds." Jake turned back to the window. The aliens always said they were creating peace in the galaxy. Funny how their peace required so much killing. The irony was not lost on any human. The Galactic Consortium claimed they maintained order and civilization throughout the galaxy. They said they protected weaker species from stronger ones. They called themselves peacekeepers and guardians. But humans had learned the truth. The aliens kept peace by destroying anyone who might challenge them. They protected weak species by making sure they stayed weak. They were not guardians but prison wardens, keeping the galaxy locked in their version of order. Humanity had changed that. Not by choice, but by necessity. When the aliens tried to exterminate them, humans fought back. When they found other oppressed species, humans freed them. When alien propaganda painted them as monsters, humans let their actions speak louder than words. "Sir, incoming transmission from Earth Command," the communications officer called out. Jake walked to his command chair and activated the secure channel. The face of Admiral Ellen Foster appeared on the main screen. She looked tired but determined, the way all human leaders look these days. "Jake, I have your orders regarding the alien delegations. You will escort them to Earth orbit, but maintain full security protocols. Any sign of deception or threat, you are authorized to respond with overwhelming force." "Understood, Admiral. When do they arrive?" "The first delegation launches tomorrow. Jake, I want you to remember something. These aliens killed our children. They burned our worlds. They tried to erase us from existence. We are offering them a chance to surrender because we are better than they are. But we will never forget what they did." Jake looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. Young and old, they all carried the same expression. They remembered the screams from New Terra. They remembered the silence that followed. They remembered being told that humans were too violent for the galaxy. Now the galaxy was learning what human violence really looked like when it was focused and determined. The aliens who had once dismissed humanity as primitive were about to discover what 15 years of human innovation could accomplish. "We remember," Jake said quietly. "We all remember." The Liberty dropped out of hyperspace near Helios Station, and Jake Morrison felt his blood turn cold. The scene before them looked like a graveyard in space. Pieces of destroyed ships floated everywhere. Some chunks of metal were as big as buildings. Others were so small they looked like glitter against the black sky. Helios Station itself was barely recognizable. The massive mining platform that had once been the size of a small city was now twisted wreckage, its huge solar collectors designed to gather energy from the dying star hung in space like broken wings. Emergency lights still blinked on some sections, but most of the station was dark and dead. Navigation Officer Lisa Parker stared at her screens with wide eyes. "Captain, I count 7 destroyed warships, 3 Zephyrian heavy cruisers, 2 Krex battleships, and 2 smaller escort vessels." Jake looked at the tactical display on his main screen. Each red dot represented a ship that could have easily destroyed the Liberty without breaking a sweat. The Zephyrian cruisers alone carried enough firepower to glass an entire planet. The Krek's battleships were even worse. Their weapons could punch holes through moons. My God, Lisa whispered. Whatever did this just went through the strongest shields in the galaxy like they were made of tissue paper. Sensor technician Ryan Brooks was hunched over his console, pressing buttons and adjusting dials. His face was pale with sweat. Captain, I am picking up some strange readings from the asteroid field near the station. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our database. Jake moved closer to Ryan's station. The young man had been their best sensor operator since they left Earth. If Ryan said something was strange, it was worth paying attention to. What kind of energy signatures? Jake asked. High-level quantum fluctuations, sir. And the power output is massive. I am reading at least 4 contacts hiding behind the larger asteroids. They are big, Captain, really big. Each one is showing up as twice the size of a Zephyrian dreadnought. Jake felt ice in his veins. Zephyrian dreadnoughts were the largest warships in known space. They were floating cities armed with weapons that could crack continents. If something was twice that size, it was beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Amy Chen looked up from her communication station. Sir, I am trying to contact any survivors from the station, but all I am getting is static. Wait. She pressed her headphones closer to her ears. I think I hear something, very faint. Someone is still alive down there. Before anyone could respond, the first enemy ship appeared from behind a massive asteroid. Jake had seen recordings of every known ship design in the galaxy, but this was something completely new. It was enormous, easily 3 times the size of the Liberty. But what made it truly frightening was how it looked. The ship seemed to be grown rather than built. Its hull curved and flowed like something alive. Parts of it were made from metal that reflected light in impossible ways. Other sections looked like black crystal that seemed to absorb all light that touched it. Strange energy crackled along its surface in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Unknown vessel, Jake said, into his communication system, trying to keep his voice steady. You are in Galactic Council space. Identify yourself and explain your actions. The response did not come through their speakers. Instead, it came directly into their minds. Jake felt a pressure inside his skull, like someone was trying to push their way into his thoughts. The feeling was cold and alien and completely wrong. When the alien thoughts finally turned into words that humans could understand, the voice was ancient and filled with contempt. We are the Devourers. Your pathetic species amuses us with your crude vessels and weak minds. Look around you, little ones. See what becomes of those who stand against us. Submit now, and we will grant you a swift death. A second ship glided out from behind another asteroid, followed by a third and then a fourth. Each one was the same impossible mix of organic curves and crystalline structures. They moved through space without any visible engines, drifting like deadly sharks through dark water. The lead ship began to glow with a purple light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Jake recognized the signs of weapons charging. He had seen enough. Alien technology to know when something was about to shoot at him. Battle stations, he ordered. All hands to battle stations. Amy, send an emergency transmission to Sector Command. Tell them what we found here. Tony, I need maximum power to shields and weapons. Pete, target the lead ship. Fire when ready. The crew moved quickly to their positions, but Jake could see the fear in their faces. They all knew what had just happened to ships much more powerful than theirs. The Liberty's weapons were old and weak. Their shields were patched together from spare parts. They were about to fight an enemy that had just destroyed the galaxy's finest warships. Pete Davis looked up from his weapons console. Captain, our plasma cannons are charged and ready. But, sir, these things just tore apart ships that could have destroyed us with one shot. Our weapons might not even scratch their paint. Jake nodded grimly. Pete was probably right. But running away was not an option. There were still people alive on that station. Maybe not many, but some. And humans did not abandon people in need, no matter how hopeless the situation looked. I know, Pete, but we are going to try anyway. The lead devourer ship finished charging its weapons. The purple glow intensified until it was almost blinding. Jake gripped the arms of his command chair and waited for the death blow that would turn the Liberty into another piece of floating wreckage. "Sir," Ryan called out from his sensor station, "I am reading massive power fluctuations in our own ship. Something is happening to our systems." Before Jake could ask what he meant, the devourer fired. A lance of purple energy shot across space toward the Liberty. It was the same type of weapon that had cut through the shields of the most advanced ships in the galaxy. The same weapon that had killed thousands of trained soldiers and experienced officers. But when the energy beam hit the Liberty's shields, something impossible happened. Instead of cutting through their defenses like a hot knife through butter, the beam was absorbed. The Liberty's shield grid, which had been held together with spare parts and hope, suddenly blazed with brilliant blue light. Not only had their shields stopped the attack, but they seemed to have grown stronger because of it. Jake stared at his tactical displays in shock. According to his instruments, their shield strength had actually increased after taking the hit. That was impossible. Shields did not work that way. When they took damage, they got weaker, not stronger. "What the hell just happened?" he whispered. The bridge fell silent except for the usual sparking and humming of their jury-rigged equipment. Everyone was staring at their instruments with the same confused expression. The devourers seemed just as surprised as the humans were. The lead ship stopped its attack and seemed to pause, as if trying to understand what had just occurred. In the quiet moment that followed, Jake realized that something was very wrong with their ship, or maybe something was very right with it. Either way, the Liberty was not what it appeared to be, and they were about to find out exactly what they had been flying all along. The Liberty moved through space in ways that should have been impossible. Jake Morrison watched his navigation displays with amazement as the ship seemed to slide between dimensions, appearing in 3 different places at once. The Devourer ships tried to track them, but their targeting systems could not lock onto a vessel that existed in multiple realities simultaneously. "Captain," Pete Davis called out from his weapon station, "the targeting computer is giving me options I never dreamed of. I can hit them through folded space, across time streams, or by bending their own attacks back at them. This is incredible." Atlas spoke through the ship's communication system with what sounded like pride. "Your weapons officer is adapting to Forerunner targeting protocols faster than any previous species I have tested. Most races require months of training to understand dimensional warfare. Humans seem to grasp it instinctively." The first Devourer. Ship fired at them again, but this time the Liberty was ready. Instead of just absorbing the purple energy beam, the ship's weapons redirected it through a dimensional fold. The attack curved through space-time and struck the Devourer ship that had fired it. The alien vessel staggered as its own weapon tore through its hull. "How are we doing this?" Amy Chen asked as she somehow found herself communicating with rescue ships across the entire sector. Her communication array was reaching distances that should have required massive deep space relay stations. "I am talking to ships that are light years away like they are in the next room." "Human adaptability," Atlas replied. "Your species has a unique talent for taking any technology and making it work in ways the original designers never intended. The Forerunners built me with specific protocols and limitations. Your crew has been unknowingly breaking those limitations and improving my systems for months." Tony Vasquez's voice came over the communication system from engineering. He sounded excited and terrified at the same time. "Captain, I have been down here trying to understand what we are really flying. This ship is not just advanced, it is impossibly advanced. The power core operates on principles that our science says should not work. But somehow all the modifications I made to improve efficiency have made it work even better. Jake remembered all the times Tony had rewired systems to get more power, all the times Pete had adjusted the weapons to improve their accuracy, all the times Amy had boosted their communications to reach farther into space. They had been improving Forerunner technology without even knowing what it was. The second Devourer ship tried a different approach. Instead of energy weapons, it launched what looked like living missiles. They moved through space like metal snakes, changing direction and speed in ways that no normal projectile could manage. Lisa Parker was at her navigation station, her hands moving over controls that were reshaping themselves under her touch. "I can see their attack coming through 4 different dimensional layers," she said with wonder, "and I know exactly how to avoid all of them." The Liberty twisted through space, moving between the living missiles like a dancer avoiding raindrops. Each time a missile came close, the ship would shift into a different dimensional layer, letting the weapon pass harmlessly through empty space. Ryan Brooks looked up from his sensor station with wide eyes. "Captain, I am detecting something incredible. There are other ships like ours hidden throughout the galaxy, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. They are all Forerunner vessels disguised as primitive technology, waiting for species worthy enough to activate them." "The Forerunners left tests scattered across the galaxy," Atlas explained. "Most species that encounter our vessels see only the crude exterior and dismiss them as worthless. Others try to use them but become frustrated when the disguised systems do not work properly. Only a very few species have the ingenuity and determination to make our hidden technology function." The third Devourer ship began charging a weapon that was larger than anything they had used before. Purple energy crackled along its entire hull, building to what looked like a planet-killing level of power. "Atlas," Jake said, "can we stop that?" "With conventional weapons, no. But your weapons officer has been making adjustments to our targeting systems that have improved their efficiency by 400%. I believe he can accomplish what should be impossible." Pete was hunched over, his controls working with systems that were changing and evolving as he used them. "Captain, the computer is showing me how to target their power core through dimensional space. I can hit their reactor without their shields even knowing we fired." "Do it." Pete pressed the firing controls. Jake could not see any weapon fire from the Liberty. There was no energy beam, no missile, no visible sign that they had attacked at all. But suddenly, the third Devourer ship went dark. Its massive weapon charge dissipated, and the ship began drifting powerlessly through space. "Direct hit on their reactor core," Pete reported with amazement. "Their power systems are completely offline." The fourth Devourer ship began to retreat, moving away from the battle as fast as it could travel. But Atlas was not finished with them. "Captain, shall we demonstrate the full capabilities of this vessel?" Jake looked around his bridge. His crew was operating technology that was millions of years beyond human science, and they were making it work better than its creators had ever imagined. He felt a surge of pride in his species and what they could accomplish. Show them what happens when humans get hold of advanced technology. The Liberty seemed to come fully alive. Systems that had been hidden for millions of years revealed themselves throughout the ship. What had appeared to be storage compartments opened to reveal weapons that could reshape reality. What had looked like simple corridors expanded into command centers that could coordinate fleets across the galaxy. The fleeing Devourer ship found itself trapped in a dimensional cage that the Liberty had created around it. No matter which direction it tried to move, it remained in the same spot. Relative to the human vessel. "Unknown aliens," Jake transmitted to the trapped ship. "You called humans a pathetic species with crude vessels and weak minds. You were wrong on all counts. This is your only warning. Leave this sector and do not return. If we see you attacking peaceful worlds again, we will stop you permanently." The dimensional cage disappeared, and the Devourer ship fled at maximum speed. The other 3 alien vessels, 1 destroyed and 2 disabled, were left drifting in space near the wreckage of Helios Station. "Atlas," Jake said, "what happens now?" "Now, Captain Morrison, humanity takes its place among the inheritors of Forerunner technology. You have proven that your species can not only use our tools, but improve upon them. The galaxy is about to learn that underestimating humans is a very dangerous mistake. Amy looked up from her communication station. Sir, I am receiving transmissions from across the sector. Word is already spreading about what happened here. The Galactic Council wants to speak with us immediately. Jake smiled. 6 months ago, the Council had given humanity 4 pieces of junk and expected them to fail. Instead, they had accidentally given humans access to the most advanced technology in the galaxy. The test was over, and humanity had passed with flying colors. 3 days after the battle at Helio Station, Jake Morrison stood on the Bridge of the Liberty and watched the most powerful leaders in the galaxy argue through his main screen. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was not going well. This is unacceptable, declared High Admiral Kextor of the Zephyrian Fleet. His blue skin was darker than usual, which Jake had learned meant he was angry. Humans were given patrol duties as a test of basic competence. They were not authorized to deploy weapons of mass destruction. With respect, Admiral, Jake replied calmly. We only use the equipment you gave us. If you have a problem with our weapons, perhaps you should have been more careful about what technology you handed over to humans. The insectoid representative from the Krex Empire clicked his mandibles in agitation. The vessel you are operating cannot be of human origin. Our analysis of the battle recordings shows capabilities that exceed anything in our databases. Where did you acquire Forerunner technology? Jake smiled. You gave it to us, remember? 6 months ago. You called it a piece of junk, suitable for patrol duties. Atlas spoke privately through Jake's earpiece, his voice amused. Captain, I am monitoring 17 different alien fleets that are currently scanning space for other disguised Forerunner vessels. It seems your demonstration has made them very nervous. On the screen, a new figure appeared. Elder Counselor. Vex of the Altarian Assembly was one of the oldest and most respected leaders in the galaxy. Her species was known for their wisdom and diplomatic skill. Captain Morrison, she said in her melodic voice, perhaps you could explain to the Council exactly what happened at Helio Station. Our records show that 4 Devourer ships attacked the mining facility and destroyed 7 of our finest warships. Then your single vessel defeated all 4 enemy ships in less than 10 minutes. Jake looked at his crew. Amy was monitoring communications from across the galaxy. Pete was running diagnostics on weapons systems that were still revealing new capabilities. Tony was in engineering, trying to map systems that seemed to expand every time he explored them. Lisa was coordinating with rescue ships that were still pulling survivors from Helio Station. We did what humans always do, Jake said simply. We took the tools we were given and made them work better than anyone expected. Elder Counselor Vex leaned forward. Captain, we have analyzed the wreckage of the Devourer ships. The damage patterns are consistent with weapons that can manipulate space-time itself. Such technology should not exist. But it does exist, Jake replied. The Forerunners built it millions of years ago. They scattered ships like mine throughout the galaxy as tests for younger species. Most races see only the crude exterior and dismiss them. Others try to use them but give up when the systems seem too primitive. Humans look at broken technology and ask how they can make it work better. High Admiral Kextor's image flickered, with static as his communication system struggled with the distance. This is a dangerous precedent. If humans have access to Forerunner technology, it could upset the balance of power in the galaxy. The balance was already upset, Jake pointed out. The Devourers were destroying everything in their path. Your eye. Fleets could not stop them. Our ship could. Maybe the galaxy needs to think about who really deserves to have advanced technology. Amy looked up from her station. Captain, I am receiving a transmission from Earth. Admiral Peterson wants to speak with you privately. Jake nodded. Put him through to my ready room. A few minutes later, Jake sat in his small office and looked at Admiral Peterson's tired face on his personal screen. The older man looked like he had aged 10 years in the past 3 days. Jake, I need to know what we are dealing with here. The reports from your ship sound like science fiction. Ships that exist in multiple dimensions, weapons that can hit targets through time itself, artificial intelligences from extinct alien races. What exactly are you flying out there? Jake thought about how to explain what he had learned. Sir, the Liberty is not a human ship. It is a test created by an ancient race called the Forerunners. They wanted to find species that could improve their technology beyond its original design. Apparently, humans passed the test. And the other? 3 ships? According to Atlas, all 4 ships are Forerunner vessels. They have been disguised as human technology, waiting to see if we were worthy of their real capabilities. The crews of the other ships are reporting similar discoveries. Admiral Peterson rubbed his forehead. Jake, do you understand what this means? Earth went from being a minor protectorate to potentially having the most advanced fleet in the galaxy. Every alien species is going to want to either ally with us or destroy us before we become too powerful. Jake had been thinking about the same thing. Yes, sir. But there is more. Atlas says there are dozens of other Forerunner ships hidden throughout the galaxy. Other species might have them too, disguised as their own primitive technology. We might not be the only ones who pass the test. That could be even more dangerous. An arms race with Forerunner technology could tear the galaxy apart. Before Jake could respond, Atlas spoke through his communication system. Captain, you may want to return to the bridge. We are receiving a transmission that you need to hear. Jake hurried back to the bridge where Amy was staring at her console with wide eyes. Sir, we are getting a signal from the edge of the galaxy. It is using Forerunner communication protocols. Put it through. The main screen lit up with an image that made everyone on the bridge gasp. It was another ship like the Liberty, but this one was not disguised. It showed its true Forerunner design, sleek and beautiful and obviously powerful. Standing on its bridge was a figure that looked almost human, but with silver skin and golden eyes. Greetings, inheritors, the figure said in a voice that sounded like music. I am Captain Zara of the Helix Coalition. We are survivors of species that passed the Forerunner tests long ago. We have been waiting for new races to join us. Jake stared at the screen. How many species have passed the test? 17 so far, over the past 1,000,000 years. Each race that proves worthy of Forerunner technology becomes part of our coalition. We explore the universe beyond this galaxy, seeking new knowledge and protecting younger species from threats like the Devourers. And you want humanity to join you? Captain Zara smiled, and her golden eyes seemed to glow brighter. Captain Morrison, your species has not just passed the Forerunner test. You have exceeded it. In 6 months, your crews have improved our technology in ways that took other species centuries to achieve. We would be honored to have humanity as partners. Jake looked around his bridge at his crew. They were still the same people who had left Earth 6 months ago in a ship they thought was held, together with spare parts and hope. But now they were being invited to join an alliance of the most advanced species in the universe. What would this partnership involve? Jake asked. Exploration beyond the galactic rim, protection of developing species, and the continued improvement of Forerunner technology. Your species has shown a talent for innovation that we have rarely seen. Together, we could accomplish wonders. Jake thought about Earth, still waiting to hear if their test mission had been successful. He thought about the Galactic Council, arguing about whether humans deserved to be taken seriously. He thought about all the species in the galaxy who had looked at human ships and laughed. None of them were laughing anymore. Captain Zara, Jake said finally, I think humanity would be very interested in that partnership. On the screen, Captain Zara's smile grew wider. Excellent. Welcome to the true galaxy, Captain Morrison. Your real journey is just beginning. Captain Greg Adams watched through the viewports of Nexus Prime as the last refugee ships arrived from the outer worlds. Hundreds of vessels crowded around the massive station, carrying billions of beings from dozens of species. They had all come here for the final stand against the Voidbringer. The entity had consumed half the galaxy in its steady advance toward the core systems. Entire civilizations had been erased from existence. Worlds that had flourished for thousands of years were now empty space. Only the core worlds remained, protected by the largest fleet ever assembled. "Captain, Dr. Miller reports the consciousness network is almost ready," his communications officer announced. The young Zephyrian had volunteered for enhancement 2 weeks ago. She was still learning to control her new abilities. Greg nodded and activated his link to the human command ship. Captain Ben Sullivan appeared on the screen, looking tired but determined. The strain of coordinating the galactic defense was visible in his enhanced features. "Ben, what's our status?" Greg asked. "Every inhabited world in the core systems has been connected to the network," Sullivan replied. "We have relay stations linking 47 different species across 2,000 worlds. If this works, we'll have the largest unified consciousness in galactic history." Dr. Rachel Miller joined the communication from her research vessel. Her enhancement had been the most extreme of all the humans. She barely looked human anymore. Her body glowed with inner light, and her thoughts moved at speeds that normal minds could not follow. "The mathematics are terrifying and beautiful," she said, her voice carrying strange harmonics. "We're attempting to link 12 billion individual minds into a single thinking entity. The power requirements alone should be impossible." "But it will work?" Greg asked. "In theory, yes. The enhanced humans will serve as the primary nodes. Our consciousness can handle the data flow from millions of normal minds, but the strain will be enormous. Many of us will not survive the process." Commander Lucas Brown appeared on another screen from his Special Forces ship. His unit had been enhanced for direct combat in reality-warped zones. They could survive in areas where the Voidbringer's influence made normal physics meaningless. "The entity has reached the outer defense perimeter," he reported. "It's not attacking yet. It's studying our formations, learning how we've organized the fleet." Greg felt the familiar chill of fear. The Voidbringer's intelligence was its most terrifying weapon. It never made the same mistake twice. "How long until it attacks?" he asked. "Based on its previous behavior, perhaps 6 hours. It likes to understand everything about its targets before it begins the consumption process." Ambassador Helen Clark joined the communication from the diplomatic vessel, where representatives from all member species were coordinating the final preparations. Her enhancement had focused on communication abilities, allowing her to speak directly to any mind connected to the network. "All species have agreed to participate," she announced. "Even the most reluctant delegates understand that this is our only chance. When the network activates, every thinking being in the core systems will be connected." Sullivan's expression grew serious. "There's something else you all need to know. Rachel has discovered the true nature of the Voidbringer." Dr. Miller stepped forward, her glowing form pulsing with energy. "It's not a weapon or a natural disaster. It's a civilization that chose a different path from the one we're taking. Long ago, they faced the same choice we did, evolve or die. But they chose evolution through consumption rather than cooperation." "What does that mean?" Greg asked. "They tried to become a unified consciousness by absorbing other minds instead of linking with them. The process worked, but it drove them insane with loneliness. They became a hunger that could never be satisfied. They consume entire galaxies looking for the connection they destroyed in themselves." The implications hit Greg like a physical blow. "So we're fighting ourselves. What we could have become if we had made different choices." "Exactly. And that gives us a weapon we didn't know we had." The Voidbringer remembers what it lost. Deep inside its consciousness, it still wants the connection it destroyed. If we can reach that part of it, we might be able to heal it instead of destroying it. Sullivan activated tactical displays showing the approaching entity. It was vast beyond imagination, stretching across light years of space. But now Greg could see something else in the images. Patterns that looked almost like neural networks. The Voidbringer was a brain twisted by eons of isolation. "All ships, prepare for consciousness network activation," Sullivan commanded. "This is it. Everything we've worked for comes down to the next few hours." Greg felt the network coming, online around him. First, the enhanced humans linked their minds together. The sensation was overwhelming. Thousands of superhuman intellects joining into a single entity that could think thoughts no individual mind could comprehend. Then the normal minds began connecting. Billions of beings across hundreds of worlds added their thoughts to the growing network. Greg felt their fear, their hope, their determination to survive. Every species brought something unique to the unified consciousness. The Zephyrian tactical genius, Molari emotional strength, Altarian telepathic sensitivity, Taraki pattern recognition, and from humanity, the ability to adapt and cooperate under impossible circumstances. "Network at full strength," Rachel announced, her voice now coming from thousands of sources simultaneously. 12 billion minds thinking as one. We are ready." The Voidbringer began its final approach. Space twisted around it as reality became unstable. Stars flickered and died. The laws of physics bent and broke. But the unified consciousness held firm. 12 billion minds working together created a stability field that resisted the entity's reality-warping effects. "It's trying to unmake us," someone said through the network. Greg couldn't tell who. Individual voices were becoming harder to distinguish as the consciousness merged deeper. "Hold the connection," Sullivan commanded. "Remember why we're fighting. Remember what we're protecting." Images flowed through the network, memories from billions of beings, children playing on distant worlds, families gathering for celebrations, scientists making discoveries, artists creating beauty, all the small moments that made life worth living. The Voidbringer struck with the full force of cosmic annihilation. Reality cracked around them, matter dissolved, energy scattered, but the consciousness network held. 12 billion minds refused to let existence end. Then Greg felt something unexpected. Through the network's connection to the Voidbringer, he sensed pain. Not the pain of destruction, but the pain of endless loneliness. The entity was suffering. "Rachel, can we reach it?" he asked through the network. "We can try, but it will require someone to make direct contact, to enter its consciousness and show it what we've learned about unity." "I'll go," Sullivan said immediately. "No," Greg replied. "You're needed to coordinate the network. I'll make contact." Before anyone could object, Greg opened his enhanced mind fully to the Voidbringer's consciousness. The experience was like falling into an ocean of pain and hunger. For a moment, he thought he would be consumed. Then he felt the others with him. The entire network supported his mind as he dove deeper into the entity's thoughts. He saw its history, a proud civilization that had tried to unite by force instead of choice, the horror when they realized what they had become. Millions of years of regret and isolation. "You don't have to be alone anymore," Greg said to the ancient intelligence. "We can show you another way." The Voidbringer's response was a wave of desperate hope mixed with disbelief. It had forgotten that connection was possible without consumption. Through the network, 12 billion minds reached out to the lonely entity. They offered friendship instead of fear, understanding instead of hatred. They showed it the unity they had built through choice and cooperation. The change was immediate. The Voidbringer's destructive force began to transform. Instead of unmaking matter, it started creating. Dead stars rekindled, consumed worlds reformed. The entity's hunger became a desire to nurture and protect. "It's working," Rachel announced. "The entity is choosing creation over destruction. Across the galaxy, the effects spread outward. Systems that had been erased began to reappear. Civilizations that had been consumed were restored. The Voidbringer used its vast power to undo the damage it had caused. What happens now? Greg asked, as he slowly withdrew from the entity's consciousness. Now we have a guardian instead of a destroyer, Sullivan replied. And we have learned something important about ourselves. Unity through choice is stronger than any weapon. The consciousness network began to dissolve as individual minds separated. But something remained. A connection between all the participating species that would never be completely broken. They had become more than the sum of their parts. Greg looked out at the stars and saw ships from dozens of species working together to help the restored civilizations. The galaxy had been saved, but more importantly, it had been united. The Voidbringer, now calling itself the Creator, began its journey to other galaxies where similar threats might be stirring. It would share the lesson it had learned. That true strength came not from consuming others, but from choosing to stand together. Humanity had returned to save the galaxy, but in doing so, they had saved something.